In this video, I'll guide you to the process of downloading and installing WAMP for Windows. WAMP is Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP software. Basically creates a server instance in your computer so that you can see websites, databases, and other programming goodies without having to upload them to an actual server. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the assignment, install WAMP. By the time you see this, hopefully the video will be attached. And I do have one big zip file, wampfiles.zip, that has all the software you're going to need. If you find it troublesome to download the large file because we have a bad connection, you can also visit the individual websites. For example, here's the WAMP server. It's a French website. Go to the download part of it, and depending on whether your system is a 64-bit or a 32-bit, you're going to get the one that you need. The one in the zip file, by the way, I do believe is a 64, so if you have a 32-bit, start by getting this one instead. I'll be sure to download a copy and put in an additional link to this assignment in case you need that. You'll also need the Visual C++ libraries, which may already be installed in your system, but you never know. They're files from Microsoft that help the program do its perform its functions. Once again, you can get the 64-bit or the 86. There's also an ARM version. And finally, I do mention Notepad++. You don't need Notepad++. It's just a text editor that's open source, and I just seem to prefer it better than the regular Notepad. So I suggest you start, like I said, by downloading wampfiles.zip and unarchiving it. So you would just click on it and wait for it to pop up. And for the sake of making this video not last so long, I'm going to just pretend that this has downloaded and it's already done and available in my disk. So I'll just open up my folder. Here's my downloads, and here's my zip file. I've already have all these files unextracted, or rather extracted. You could just right click and tell it to extract all, and then you would have all your files in this folder. The files, like I said, are the WAMP server installer. That's the W icon. And also I have the Visual C++ redistributable files. I have both the 64-bit and the 32-bit options. I'm going to be using the 64. The 32-bit doesn't say 32, it says x86. And there's Notepad++. I've already installed Notepad++, so I will not go through that process. However, I will tell you that before you try to install WAMP server, you want to start with the Visual C++ files. I'll double click on the 64 version, give it permission to run, agree to the license, and give it a couple of minutes. Hopefully not that long, maybe just a few seconds. And once this is done, we'll move on to the next thing. I read somewhere that you should have both the 64 and the 32-bit versions installed. I'm not sure how proper that may or may not be. However, let's see what happens when I try to install the 32-bit after installing the 64. If it doesn't give me any errors, I'll just stick with it. I'll install it, and that was quick. It's done. I'll close, and so now my additional libraries have been installed. Let's then go for the WAMP server. Double click on that, tell it to run. It might ask me for some more permissions. I'll minimize my browser in the meantime and click yes. Click OK. accept the agreement. And here it's just telling you before you install WAMP server, make sure that you have the Visual C++ packages. So if I missed on anything, maybe you'll be able to find some additional information on what files you may be missing. I'll click on Next. I don't necessarily want it to be in WAMP 64. I'd rather just have WAMP. It's familiar, it's friendlier, and same thing with the shortcut. I'll just call it WAMP. Click Next. And confirming, it's going to go into C:WAMP, install it. This will also give me a shortcut on my desktop when it's done. This may take a couple of minutes, so I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back when it's finished. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes. I'm back to the installing. It's almost done, or so I hope. In all the files in separate folders. That will include a space where you can put in your web files and folders for publishing later. This should be done in hopefully less than 15 seconds. Okay, so now it's asking me if I want to use Internet Explorer by Windows, Microsoft, as to be used by web server. It's your choice, really, but I will not use Internet Explorer during this presentation or any of the assignments that you see. If you have issues with Internet Explorer, I really will not be able to help you. I recommend that you use Chrome or Firefox or anything other than Explorer, maybe the new Edge browser. Just use a modern browser. I do want to choose another browser for now, and I'm going to go and find in the Google folder Chrome. It's right there, their application. And instead of Notepad, the regular Notepad, I want to use Notepad++, so that should be in my program files. So I'll go back to program files. Let me see if it's the regular one. Yes, and there's Notepad++, and here's my Notepad shortcut. Click OK, and allow Apache server to communicate on these networks. Well, I'm not necessarily want to use public networks, so I'm just going to be on private networks for the most part. Allow access. You're connected as root with no password. That will become evident later. I click on Next and tell it to finish. Cross my fingers and hope I don't get an error. Not yet. Close this. I now have a shortcut to web server on my desktop, and I'll double click that. I'll give it permission, and I see the icon appear in my in this tab down here, and it's turning green, which tells me that the services are running. If you right click on the web server icon, you'll get a contextual editor. If you just left click, you get a different one, which will show you phpMyAdmin, your local host, and other shortcuts to MySQL, PHP, Apache, etc. I want to click on phpMyAdmin just to make sure that that is installed. And at this point, for your assignment, I would like for you to, well, not necessarily get the phpMyAdmin, but rather the local host that shows you your server configuration, etc. Get a screen capture of this screen and turn it in for gray.